Commander Ta stood at the observation window, watching the massive council chamber with careful eyes. The Galactic Council meeting hall was a giant dome of glittering crystal and metal, designed to impress visitors from 1,000 worlds. Thousands of representatives from different species filled the hall, their forms ranging from insectoid to humanoid to shapes that defied easy description. "Impressive, isn't it?" Captain Jai-Ho said, joining him at the window. "All these species, all these civilizations, and not one of them knows our secret." Ta nodded. "That's how it must remain, at least for now." The human delegation had spent months preparing for this moment. Earth had discovered faster-than-light travel only 30 years ago, but had kept this achievement hidden from alien observers. While other species thought humans were still confined to their solar system, Earth had been building a powerful fleet in secret, including the massive Goliath Supercarrier. "The Xanthari representatives are arriving," Jai-Ho noted, pointing to a group of tall, willowy aliens with pale blue skin and 4 arms. Their leader, Ambassador Rill, moved with the easy confidence of someone used to being in control. "Remember," Ta said quietly, "we're the humble newcomers, wide-eyed, grateful, and completely harmless." Jai-Ho smiled. "I've been practicing my look of awe for weeks." When the formal introductions began, the human delegation followed their careful plan. They presented outdated engine designs, basic weapon systems, and simple shield technology. Ambassador Hannah spoke with carefully crafted humility as she presented Earth's achievements. The Xanthari delegation didn't bother hiding their feelings of superiority. Ambassador Rill examined the human technical displays with an expression that reminded Tai of someone looking at a child's crayon drawing. "The human delegation presents unimpressive technological achievements," Rill announced to the council, his voice smooth and confident. "We welcome Earth to the galactic community as a developing civilization deserving of our guidance." Several council members nodded in agreement. The Xanthari had ruled the Galactic Council for centuries, and few dared to challenge them openly. Captain Jai-Ho leaned toward Tai, whispering, "They're underestimating us exactly as planned." Tan noticed the subtle twitching of Rill's secondary arms, a sign of irritation or perhaps contempt. The Xanthari ambassador clearly considered this meeting the waste of his valuable time. Ambassador Hannah approached the central podium with practiced humility. Her simple gray uniform had been carefully chosen to appear functional but unsophisticated compared to the elaborate garments of the council members. "The people of Earth are grateful for the council's acceptance," she said, her voice warm and sincere. "We have much to learn from your 1,000-year civilization." The rest of the meeting proceeded according to plan. The human delegation accepted trade agreements that seemed heavily weighted in the council's favor. They expressed gratitude for protection from pirate elements, agreeing to host a small Xanthari security force in Earth's system, a force that would never actually be allowed past the outer detection grid. Only once did Ta feel concern. During the technical exchange, a small amphibian-like council member asked a surprisingly detailed question about Earth's energy production capabilities. Hannah handled it smoothly, but Tai made a mental note to investigate the species further. Later, aboard their diplomatic vessel, the human delegation gathered in the secure conference room. The room had been swept for listening devices 3 times before they felt safe to speak freely. Admiral Sung, the highest-ranking military officer present, reviewed the day's proceedings. A holographic display showed the Xanthari homeworld and their known fleet positions. "The Council believes our fastest ships reach only half their actual speed," he noted with satisfaction. "Our weapons systems are estimated at 30% capacity." "What about our true numbers?" asked Jai-Ho. "Do they know how many ships we actually have?" "They think we have a defense fleet of 60 vessels," Sung replied. "They have no idea about the 500 ships we've built in the asteroid belt shipyards." Ambassador Hannah nodded, then asked the most critical question, "And the Goliath program?" Admiral Sung smiled slightly. "Completely unknown. The deep space dry docks remain undetected. The Xanthari believe our largest ship is the cruiser-class vessel we showed them today. They have no concept that we've built something 18 kilometers long. Ty felt a surge of pride. The Goliath Supercarrier represented the pinnacle of human achievement, a vessel so powerful it could face an entire Xanthari battle fleet and emerge victorious. For now, it remained hidden, a secret weapon to be revealed only when absolutely necessary. "How long will we maintain this deception?" Captain Jaiho asked. "As long as needed," Hannah replied. "We've seen how the Xanthari treat lesser species. We need to understand the Council's true power structure before we show our hand." As they talked, Earth's greatest warship waited silently in the darkness between stars, ready for the day when humanity would finally reveal its true strength to the galaxy. Retrieseth ministered who paced the length of the command center, his face dark with anger. The room was filled with the soft hum of computers and the quiet voices of officers tracking ship movements across space. The large holographic display in the center showed a detailed map of human territory and the surrounding systems, with red markers indicating Xanthari activity. 6 months, he muttered. 6 months of playing nice, and this is how they repay us. He stopped at the command table and slammed his fist down on its surface. The impact made the holographic display flicker briefly. Another border violation. The Xanthari have established mining operations on Proxima Centauri b, just outside our declared territory. The other leaders in the room exchanged glances. They had all expected this, but not so soon. General June, a tall woman with short gray hair and a stern face shaped by decades of military service, pointed to several blinking points on the display. "They're testing our resolve," she said. 3 smaller species have already requested our protection after Xanthari resource appropriation missions. The term resource appropriation was a polite way of saying theft. The Xanthari had a long history of taking what they wanted from weaker civilizations, using their dominant position in the Galactic Council to justify their actions. Admiral Sung approached the table. His uniform was simple but impeccable, with only a small pin showing his rank. He waved his hand, and the holographic display zoomed in on the space near Earth's major supply routes. "They're systematically expanding toward our supply routes," he said, tracing the pattern with his finger. "The Council has rejected all our diplomatic protests." Minister Du shook his head. "Ambassador Hannah has filed 17 formal complaints, each one dismissed with barely a discussion." The room fell silent as Intelligence Director Sue entered. She carried a data pad and had the tired look of someone who hadn't slept in days. Without a word, she connected her pad to the command table, and new information appeared in the display. "We have confirmation," she said. "The Xanthari are planning a demonstration strike against our colony on Ta City to put humans in their place." The colony on Ta City was home to nearly 50,000 civilians. It was one of humanity's first extraterrestrial settlements, established shortly after Earth had developed faster than light travel. The colony was officially described to the Galactic Council as a small research outpost with limited defenses. "How certain is this intelligence?" asked General June. "Completely reliable," Sue replied. "We intercepted direct communications between the Xanthari Fleet Command and their council representatives. They believe a display of force will teach us to be more cooperative. They think we'll back down," Admiral Sung added. "Based on what they know of our capabilities, they expect us to make concessions rather than risk conflict." Minister Du walked to the window. From this orbital station above Earth, he could see the blue planet below, peaceful and seemingly vulnerable. For a moment, he thought about all the species that had faced Xanthari aggression before, how many had been forced into submission because they lacked the strength to resist. Earth had prepared for this moment. Since discovering the true nature of galactic politics, humanity had devoted enormous resources to secretly building defenses far beyond what they revealed to the Council. The centerpiece of those preparations was the Goliath project. "How many civilians on Ta City can we evacuate before the Xanthari arrive?" Du asked. Admiral Sung consulted the data. "Maybe 20%. They're moving too quickly. And if we deploy conventional forces, we could save the colony, General Jun said, but we'd reveal more of our military capability than planned. And we might not be ready when they bring their full force against Earth. Du turned back to face the others. His decision was already made, but he needed to hear them say it. Recommendations. We can't abandon those colonists, said General Jun. Conventional response risks greater conflict later, said Admiral Sung. The Xinthari only respects superior force, added Director Su. Half measures will make things worse. Minister Du nodded. They were right. The time for hiding had passed. The Xinthari had mistaken patience for weakness, restraint for fear. Now they would learn the truth about humanity's strength. Contact Earth Command, he said, his voice firm and resolute. It's time for Protocol Goliath. The words hung in the air for a moment. Everyone in the room understood what this meant. After years of secrecy and preparation, humanity would finally reveal its most powerful weapon. The massive supercarrier that had been built in the darkness between stars. Admiral Sung typed a series of commands into the console. A new screen appeared, requesting multiple confirmation codes. Each leader approached and entered their authorization. Protocol Goliath confirmed, the system announced. Goliath Supercarrier activated and awaiting deployment coordinates. Set course for Ta City, Minister Du ordered. The Xinthari wanted to teach us a lesson. Instead, they're about to learn one. The emergency alert sounded throughout the Galactic Council station. Representatives hurried to the main observation deck, drawn by urgent messages about the Xinthari peacekeeping action at the human colony. Ambassador Hannah walked calmly through the crowded hallways. Unlike the other diplomats rushing around her, she maintained a composed expression. She had received the coded message 30 minutes ago. Goliath en route. Arrival in 45 minutes. The observation deck was a massive chamber with transparent walls, offering a perfect view of the space around Ta City. The planet hung like a blue-green jewel against the blackness, but the beauty of the scene was marred by flashes of weapons fire in orbit. Representatives from 17 species had gathered, their expressions ranging from concern to morbid curiosity. Several Xinthari officials stood together, watching with satisfaction as their fleet's attack unfolded. The main screen activated, showing a transmission from the colony surface. Governor Bin's face appeared, streaked with dust. The room behind him shook as explosions sounded in the background. Several council members gasped at the sight of wounded humans being carried past the camera. Xinthari warships have disabled our defensive grid. Governor Bin shouted over the noise. Civilian casualties mounting. We require immediate. The transmission cut to static. An analyst reported in a flat voice. Connection lost. Heavy bombardment detected in the colony's central district. Hannah felt a surge of anger, but kept her face neutral. This attack wasn't just about resources or territory. The Xinthari wanted to make an example of humans, to show the galaxy what happened to species that didn't submit to their authority. Ambassador Rill, the senior Xinthari representative, noticed Hannah watching. He glided toward her, his forearms held in a gesture that his species used to express regret. A gesture Hannah knew was completely insincere. A regrettable situation, Rill said smoothly. Your colony was warned several times about proper resource allocation procedures. The Council voted to support this enforcement action. A vote where the Xinthari and their client states hold the majority. Hannah replied calmly. Rill's secondary arms twitched slightly. This is simply how the galaxy works. Ambassador, the strong provide structure. The weak accept guidance. On the screens, Xinthari warships continued their systematic destruction of the colony's infrastructure. Their weapons targeted power plants, water reclamation facilities, and transportation hubs. Everything needed for the colony's survival. Your military response has been noted, Rill continued, gesturing toward the screen which showed 2 small human defensive ships already disabled. Admirable, but ultimately futile. You must understand that resistance only increases suffering. Rill leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper intended only for Hannah. Regrettable, but perhaps now humans will understand their proper place in galactic hierarchy. Hannah's communicator beeped once. She knew exactly what that signal meant. She smiled at Rill. Actually, Ambassador, I believe we're about to demonstrate exactly where humanity stands. Confusion crossed Rill's features, but before he could respond, gasps and cries of surprise filled the observation deck. All eyes turned to the main view screen. The space above Ta City shimmered as reality itself seemed to bend. A massive shape emerged from hyperspace, the HSS Goliath. As it fully materialized, even Hannah felt a moment of awe despite having seen the specifications many times. The Goliath was 18 kilometers long, its dark hull gleaming with subtle blue energy patterns. It dwarfed the largest Xanthuri flagship by an order of magnitude. Next to it, the Xanthuri vessels looked like children's toys. "By the eternal stars," whispered a reptilian council member, their scales paling in shock. The Xanthuri ships immediately redirected their fire toward the human supercarrier. Energy weapons and missiles streaked toward the Goliath. But something remarkable happened. Without firing a single shot in return, the massive ship simply activated its defensive systems. A shimmering quantum field expanded outward, encasing not only the Goliath, but extending to cover the colony below. When the Xanthuri weapons fire reached this field, it simply stopped. Some weapons disappeared entirely. Others seemed to lose power and drift harmlessly away. "Impossible," Rill whispered, all four of his hands gripping the railing before him. On the tactical display, data streamed in as the Council's sensors analyzed the Goliath. The readings made several analysts shake their heads in disbelief. Energy signature exceeds any known power source by a factor of 50, one reported. Hull composition unknown. "Not matching any material in our database," said another. Hannah watched as the Xanthuri ships desperately tried different weapons, different angles of attack, all with the same result. Their most powerful weapons simply could not penetrate the Goliath's defenses. A communication channel opened, and a calm human voice addressed the Xanthuri fleet. "This is Admiral Sung of the HSS Goliath. Your attack on a civilian colony violates multiple treaties. You will power down your weapons and withdraw from this system immediately." For several tense moments, nothing happened. Then, one by one, the Xanthuri ships began to retreat, jumping to hyperspace without further comment. Ambassador Rill stood frozen, his eyes fixed on the enormous human vessel that had just revealed centuries of deception. Around him, the other council representatives were already looking at the human delegation with new eyes, with respect, with fear, and with the dawning realization that everything they thought they knew about humanity had been carefully crafted fiction. "Ambassador," Hannah said quietly to Rill, "perhaps we should discuss a new framework for our species relationship." The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council had never been so chaotic. The curved walls that normally echoed with measured debate now amplified shouts and accusations. Representatives from dozens of species argued fiercely while security teams struggled to maintain some semblance of order. In the center of the chamber, Ambassador Rill stood at the speaker's podium. His blue skin had darkened with emotion, and all four of his arms gestured wildly as he abandoned his usual calm demeanor. "Deception," he shouted, his voice cutting through the noise. "The humans have violated Council transparency protocols." Rill activated the chamber's main display, showing footage of the massive Goliath Supercarrier. "They have hidden their true military capabilities. They have lied about their technological advancement. This is a direct violation of Section 42 of the membership agreement." Ambassador Hannah sat quietly at the human delegation's table, her expression neutral despite the storm raging around her. She had expected this reaction. The revelation of the Goliath had shattered centuries of Xanthuri dominance in a single moment, and they were fighting desperately to regain control. "How can we trust a species that deceives the Council?" Rill continued. "I call for immediate sanctions against Earth. Their membership should be suspended until a full investigation is completed." Several representatives from species traditionally aligned with the Xanthari nodded in agreement, but Hannah noticed something interesting. Many others remained silent, watching carefully. The balance of power was shifting before their eyes. Ambassador Tori from the Vexnal Republic, a small but respected civilization, rose to speak. May I remind the Council that the Xanthari were engaged in an unprovoked attack against a civilian colony. That seems a more pressing violation of our laws. A murmur of agreement spread through the chamber. The attack was a Council-approved enforcement action. Rill insisted, but his voice held less conviction. Approved by a council dominated by Xanthari interests, countered Ambassador Sela of the Bracti Worlds. Many of us abstained from that vote. The chamber erupted again as more representatives joined the argument. Smaller species that had long suffered under Xanthari economic control were openly challenging their authority. Security officers moved nervously between the sections, ready to intervene if arguments turned physical. The council president, an elderly Moraxian who had held the position for 12 cycles, repeatedly struck his resonance rod against the podium. The deep sound eventually brought a measure of quiet. "We will have order," he said firmly. "The human delegation has requested the right to address these accusations. Admiral Sung will speak." Admiral Sung approached the central podium with measured steps. Unlike Rill's emotional display, the human officer's calm presence immediately commanded attention. He stood silently for a moment, letting the chamber settle before he began speaking. The Goliath exists because history taught humanity a valuable lesson. Peace through strength is not aggression. It is protection. His words resonated through the chamber, simple but powerful. When we discovered faster-than-light travel and began exploring beyond our system, we observed how the Galactic Council operated. We saw smaller species pressured into unfavorable agreements. We witnessed peacekeeping actions that looked remarkably like conquest. Several representatives shifted uncomfortably. Everyone knew these things happened, but they were rarely discussed so openly. Sung continued, "Humanity chose to protect itself. Yes, we concealed our true capabilities. We revealed only what was necessary while we assessed whether the Council truly represented peaceful cooperation or simply enforced the will of the strongest." He activated a holographic display showing partial schematics of the supercarrier. The technical specifications displayed were incomplete but still impressive enough to cause whispers throughout the chamber. The Goliath represents technology we developed independently over 50 years. We concealed it not out of malice, but caution. Recent events have unfortunately proven our caution was warranted. Rill tried to interrupt, but the council president silenced him with a gesture. The Goliath never fired a single weapon. Sung reminded everyone. It protected our colony using purely defensive systems. Is this the action of an aggressive species? The chamber had grown quiet now, representatives contemplating his words. Then something unexpected happened. Ambassador Min from the Eloran Federation stood up. The Elorans had been loyal Xanthari allies for generations, their military forces often supporting Xanthari peacekeeping operations. "My government wishes to formally withdraw from our military pact with the Xanthari Imperium," Min announced, her voice clear and determined. "And we wish to open discussions with Earth regarding mutual defense." Gasps filled the chamber. The Eloran announcement was a seismic shift in council politics. Rill stared at Min with naked shock. "This is outrageous. The treaty between our peoples has stood for 200 years. 200 years of increasing demands and diminishing returns," Min replied calmly. "The Elorans chose a new path. What followed was unprecedented in council history. The Bracti Worlds announced their withdrawal from Xanthari trade agreements. The Vexnal Republic declared their defense boundaries would now be enforced independently. The Jovari Assembly requested human technical assistance. Within hours, 6 more alliances crumbled as the Council's power balance dramatically shifted. Species that had been quietly resentful of Xanthari dominance seized the opportunity to break free. By the end of the emergency session, Ambassador Rill sat alone at the Xanthari delegation table. His forearms were folded tightly across his chest. His skin had paled to a sickly gray, and his eyes burned with a mixture of rage and disbelief. Across the chamber, Hannah caught Admiral Sung's eye and nodded slightly. Phase 1 of humanity's emergence onto the galactic stage was complete. Now the real work would begin. The bright morning light streamed through the redesigned council chamber windows, casting colorful patterns across the new circular arrangement of seats. Gone were the old raised platforms where the Xanthari and their allies had looked down on the lesser species. Now all representatives sat at equal height around a perfect circle, a physical reminder of the new balance of power. Ambassador Hannah walked to her seat, greeting representatives from various worlds as she passed. Many nodded respectfully, some even bowed slightly, a gesture that would have been unthinkable a year ago, when humans were seen as newcomers to be tolerated, not respected. Ambassador Hannah called a friendly voice. It was Representative Kir of the Bracti worlds, a species that had suffered centuries of Xanthari economic control. The trade agreement is working wonderfully. Our agricultural exports have doubled since we redirected them to human markets. I'm glad to hear it, Hannah replied with a smile. Earth's population has developed quite a taste for Bracti fruit. As Hannah took her seat, she noticed the Xanthari section. Once occupying a quarter of the chamber, their delegation now consisted of just 3 representatives sitting in a small area. Ambassador Rill had been recalled months ago, replaced by a younger diplomat who lacked his predecessor's arrogance. The Xanthari Imperium had collapsed with stunning speed after the Goliath's revelation. Without their military advantage, they could no longer intimidate other species. Subject populations had revolted, claimed independence, and formed their own governments. The once mighty empire now controlled only its homeworld and a handful of nearby colonies. The council president called the session to order. Today's agenda included finalizing the new defense treaty, a cooperative agreement unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. 26 species had already signed, with 5 more expected to join today. As the meeting progressed, Hannah's secure communicator vibrated softly. It was time for her scheduled report to Earth Command. She quietly excused herself and found a private communication room. Minister Du's face appeared on the screen. Though a year had passed, he looked older, the responsibility of reshaping galactic politics weighing heavily on him. Minister, Hannah greeted with a small bow. Ambassador, how goes the council session? Hannah smiled. Better than we could have hoped. The defensive alliance now includes 26 member species. 5 more joined today. Du nodded with satisfaction. And the Xanthari, no longer a significant threat. Their attempt to build new warships was abandoned when 3 shipyard worlds declared independence. Any sign of resistance? Any new alliances forming against us? Hannah shook her head. None. The Goliath hasn't needed to fire a single weapon to maintain peace. Its presence alone has been enough. Minister Du looked relieved. That was always our hope. Strength not to conquer, but to prevent conquest. After finishing her report, Hannah returned to the council session. As she listened to species that had once been enemies now working together, she felt a deep sense of satisfaction. The deception had been necessary, but the peace that followed was real. Far from the council station, the HFY Goliath moved silently through space, its massive form casting a shadow across the stars. On its observation deck, Admiral Sung and Captain Jiho stood before the panoramic windows, watching as ships from a dozen different worlds practiced formation flying nearby. The joint exercise was remarkable. Species that had once been bitter rivals now flew side by side, their crews learning to work together. Small fighter craft darted between larger vessels in complicated patterns, demonstrating a level of cooperation unimaginable just a year ago. The Jovari pilots have improved dramatically, Jiho noted, pointing to a squadron executing a perfect pincer movement. Sung nodded. They're quick learners. Their ships were always fast, but they lacked discipline. Now they match our best squadrons. A comfortable silence fell between them as they continued to watch the exercise. The Goliath itself was not participating. Its enormous size and advanced systems would make the training too easy. Instead, it remained a silent guardian, its presence ensuring that the training could proceed without fear of attack. "They still don't know, do they?" asked Jai-Ho after a while. Sung shook his head. "No one outside Earth Command knows that the Goliath is actually one of 12 identical vessels. Some secrets are still worth keeping." Even Ambassador Hannah wasn't aware of the full extent of humanity's fleet. The other 11 supercarriers remained hidden in various locations throughout human space, ready to emerge if needed. But with each passing day of peace, that need seemed less likely. Jai-Ho looked out at the stars and the ships that now flew together rather than against each other. "For peace," he said quietly. Admiral Sung followed his gaze, remembering the long years of preparation, the difficult decisions, the careful deception, all to avoid the wars they had seen consuming other species. "For peace," Sung agreed. In the vast darkness of space, the Goliath continued its silent vigil, a shield rather than a sword, protecting the fragile new order that had replaced centuries of domination with something better, a galaxy where strength meant responsibility, not control. The end.